Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. I am Rich Maletto. You can find me in the Xbox machine at Fantasy Bosco. I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only, the myth, the man, the legend, Sean Engel, who you can find on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Sean E247. That's Sean S-E-A-N. We're into short names around these parts. Rich and Sean, 4 letters. We don't need more than that. You know, it's just wasted space otherwise.
Keep it nice and simple.
Right? The RaceGuru Thunder Hour is brought to you by FantasyGuru.com. Please check out the website where you can find all of our content, everything Sean and I do, and more. You don't want to leave out the guys like Jeff Mans, Ray Flowers, and Rob Povia, Patio Joe, Mark Hogan, who, shout out Mark. We'll be giving you a hat tip later today, but shout out to Mark, Mondo Russ, the whole crew. We stand by all our content at Fantasy Guru, all a part of the Elite Plus network. Please check out the website. We do have multiple specials going on right now. If you love our racing content, hey, for $39.99, you get 12 months. You get the rest of this year, the start of next year, plus hockey, plus basketball, plus horse racing, MMA, PGA, and more. $39.99. Check it out at fantasyguru.com. And still, for a limited time, you can get our all-in complete package. The whole kit and caboodle, everything that we offer from elite data to anything and everything on the site for betting and DFS, normally priced at $79.99, $800 for 12 months. No, use the code 50SPECIAL, SPECIAL. You get 50% off. You get all of the content on the site for 12 months at $400. Folks, I'm telling you that is cheap. $40, less than $40 a month for everything. If you're in a legal state, like to do DFS, I'm telling you that I stand by our content for $40 a month anyway. I think it's better than half the sports publications that are out there that put out content. So there you have it. Well, Sean, as always, we're here to talk NASCAR. I know it's the month of May, so I do want to give a small hat tip to the Indy 500. It's not this weekend, but we got the Indy 500 coming up next week. After qualifications, you might see me post a couple of things in the NASCAR channel for the Indy 500 because we do have I believe, a DraftKings contest that will be available. I'm looking forward to Memorial Day weekend. That's still a week away, but I always get excited this time of year. It's always NASCAR All-Star Race weekend. It is usually Indy 500 qualifying. F1's getting all yippity-yappity for Monaco coming up. I mean, Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, man, there's a full day of racing if you're into racing, Sean.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, they say May is always one of the very best months of the year if you're a motorsports fan in general, not just NASCAR. If you're into Indy, if you're into F1, this is just the month for you because you get so much big and notable racing activity and so much prestige behind the month. It's just quite an incredible time each and every year.
I love it. I love the month of May. I grew up when Indy still did like the whole month, right? They had qualifying over 2 different weeks. We had bubble day, we had pole day, we had carb day, we had all the fun stuff. It's obviously simmered down. You know, back then, shoot, man, we would get almost 40 cars trying to qualify, 36, 39, that type of stuff. And it's waned over the years, of course, but I used to love watch. Bob Jenkins used to have this special on ESPN, and it was just, man, I'd come home from school every day and watch Bob Jenkins talk about something else about Indy 500. A different year, a different winner, a different tragedy, a different hero. Man, the history there is crazy. The history for the Coke 600, which is, you know, we used to do the All-Star race regularly there in Charlotte. That's got a ton of history. I mean, the Coke 600 history is notorious in NASCAR. And Monaco's history in F1 is notorious. I mean, it's the great way to end a month. And look, it's always been kind of the launch of summer, right? I mean, I don't know about you, Sean, but I'm ready for summer.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to see some of the summer action here because it's only going to heat up.
Oh, what was the old Tony Stewart days? He gets hot once he gets going once the tire and the track gets hot and we start slipping and sliding. The way these tires are in NASCAR, I don't know if we want that right now since, you know, we can't get back to pit road with one flat tire, but I'm all for the slipping and sliding. So bring on the heat, bring on the action. I'm ready to go. And honestly, I wish where we're going this weekend was a points paying place. I love that we're going to North Wilkesboro. we need to make this a staple, and it doesn't need to be a hokey all-star race, in my opinion. I'm not trying to knock the all-star race, but in the grand scheme of things, it's an exhibition race. Yeah.
An exhibition race where NASCAR gets experimental and tries things that they may or may not add to the rest of the Cup Series either later this year or even into next season.
They do like to test and try things. This is nothing new. They do like that for the all-star race. And look, the teams enjoy. I like that it's in North Carolina. It's a short trip from Charlotte up to North Wilkesboro. So, these teams aren't having to travel a lot. I love that NASCAR brings the trucks here because it's a fantastic venue for the trucks. It's excellent. So I do love that. So kudos to NASCAR. And I apologize, Sean. I accidentally somehow hit something and I'm bleeding, and it's bleeding profusely for some reason. So my apologies, dude. This is why I've got something on my face.
Okay, are you going to be all right to make it through the show, or are you just going to tough it out like those classic 90s NASCAR drivers going through wrecks and then still racing while injured like that?
If I had duct tape, I'd tape my nose right now, tape my eyes open, and say, I'm Ricky Rudd. Let's ride. Let's get it on. So without further ado, Sean, should we talk about last week's events? Last week was pretty phenomenal. I mean, I love this track, but you'll never hear me complain about Darlington, bro.
Yeah, Darlington is always a classic track. I mean, it is one of NASCAR's oldest tracks, and, this past weekend was a good statement as to why that is the case, because we had ourselves 3 interesting races this past weekend there, Rich. How about we get started and we talk about the Truck Series race first and foremost. Now, this one was interesting because it was a wild race where there were several accidents and it took out a lot of the top favorites, including Kyle Busch very early on. Corey Heim got his first finish outside the top 10 this year because of an accident. And then we also had Raja Caruth and Matt Crafton get involved in accidents there, Rich.
And what was crazy about all of that, first of all, the Kyle Busch thing caught us all off guard, right? I mean, nobody expected to see that with 2 laps into the event, right? So that in itself was crazy. And then poor Corey Heim, that was no fault of his own. The guy was dominating the whole event at this point, was already back in the top 5 doing his thing, and boom, he gets taken out. And Raja, we watched Raja and William Byron come through the field multiple times, and then they both couldn't seem to stop cutting tires.
Yeah, tires was we said it last week on the show. Tire wear was going to be a big concern, even though we were talking about the Cup Series. That applied to all 3 series when you really think about it and get down to it. Just because the way that the track surfaced, the way that the track is challenging. Overall, we saw these drivers struggle just with the tires and with maneuvering the track there, Rich.
That was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. And to see, look, we know Darlington's going to be a tire thing. That's always a thing. I mean, even when they mentioned it in the article, even when they repaved it, they worked, took effort to try to find a surface that would tear apart the tires like the track historically has done, right? I think what I shocked most of us is how those things were happening, right? I mean, it was a lot more bumping and banging and cutting of the tires. It wasn't, teams trying to take, going too long into a pit run or something like that. Yes, I was shocked. The Byron one is, I think, the one that shocked me more than anything because he had been doing so good up to that point.
Well, Byron still ended up scoring a pretty strong finish. The thing that was crazy about him was that he got about 3 laps down at one point of the race, and it took him the entire race to come back towards a strong finish when he was just, I believe he was catching towards the top 10 real quick there, Rich.
He was. I mean, he definitely had one of the fastest trucks. There was no doubt about that. It was impressive. I mean, granted, because his incident happened early enough, we did get a couple of cautions early on where he was about the only guy that was a lap down at the time that he was able to take advantage of. Look, no matter how good you are at racing, no matter how good the equipment is, luck comes into play in racing and being in the right place at the right time and the wrong place at the right time. Corey Heim was one of the best trucks all day. He caught some bad luck being in the wrong place at the wrong time when two vehicles got together. Byron created his own nightmare, and then happened to be in the right place at the right time to get back on the lead lap. So Darlington always brings the best stories, Sean, in my opinion. And one thing I took away from it was, man, even the guys
Actually,
that
my bad there, Rich. Byron was in the Xfinity race, not the truck race.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Why did I think he was in the truck race? Ross was in the truck race.
Yeah, because we knew a Cup Series driver ended up winning the race with Ross Chastain prevailing late in overtime for his first Darlington truck win over Nick Sanchez, who started from the back. Ben Rhodes,
right.
Christian Eckes, and Ty Majeski.
I apologize. I got the Xfinity truck races completely confused this week with the Cup drivers. Look, all the races were great, man. I couldn't turn them off this week. My hat tip to NASCAR and everybody, because I absolutely loved all three. So my bad for I do have those brain farts from time to time and getting some of these things twisted up and confused. So I do apologize for that.
It happens to the best of us. People think that it's easy to just go through and talk about all this information and just have it ready off the top of your head. But then you go forth and do the broadcast sometimes, and it's just like, oh, wait, it was this thing or that thing.
Do you know how many times on the coaching stream I've referred to Brock Purdy as Chase Purdy?
We've talked about this off air. You said it was countless times, man.
It's been bad. And I've done it both ways. I've had people look at me and go, who the heck is Chase Purdy? And I've had people go, who the heck is Brock Purdy? I mean, it's just, it amazes me how I can't seem to get it right. It really does.
You know, speaking of Chase Purdy, he was one of the finishers on the standout finishers list that we had for the Truck Series race. He ended up scoring a pretty solid 6th place finish there, Rich.
I have been disappointed with how he has run so far this year. I have had higher expectations, especially running for the team that he's running for. So good on him, but come on, buddy. We got to start seeing a little bit this more consistently. And really what was more exciting about this event was the last 3 weeks, we have seen him more consistently run inside the top 10. Usually he's starting there and falling back pretty quickly. So that was something to kind of, I guess, look forward to, be excited about, something along those lines. Colby Howard had a 7th place run, and I really like that. I mean, I pushed him hard in the article. He was starting, inside the top 10. It was a risky play. He paid off, man. He was absolutely fantastic. Ty Dillon runs well there. I didn't push him hard, but he does run well there, and not overly shocked to see how that ended up.
He finished 9th there.
Yep.
So good run for him.
Both the Gray brothers ended up, and Taylor had a rough go for a while. We weren't sure where he was going to end up. So did Tanner, actually, at one point. So both of them finishing inside the top 10. Matt Mills, kudos to you, sir, with an 11th place finish. And hey, how about our boy Lawless Allen, man?
Yeah, Lawless Allen with the 12th place run. He got close to the top 10, and that's something that we do not say very often.
The frustrating thing with Allen is he is fast regularly. Like, this is nothing. He shows speed almost every week, yet he crashes so often. Sometimes it's not his fault, but my gosh, I don't know how many times I've been loving a lineup with Lawless Allen because he's running top 20, top 15, right? 12th, not so much. 17th, 18th, it's been a good day. Dude, the last few races, he's been getting it done, man.
I'm telling you, it's that equipment's finally coming through, and he's been able to close out these races. So that's a thing that's been trending in the right direction there for Lawless Allen there. That ended up being his 3rd top 15 finish of the year, and his 2nd in the last 3 races now, Rich.
That's insane for him. Good for him, because it's always been frustrating to watch somebody have speed and constantly wreck. You know what I mean? Like, it just, look, our job is to help you find people to bet on that we think are going to be quick, whether it's equipment, whether it's driver, whether it's a little bit of both. And when you constantly see someone that is, overperforming the equipment regularly or constantly having more speed than you anticipate, and yet they keep burning you because they aren't finishing races, it's really fun to see them doing well.
Oh,
and
yeah,
hey,
sure.
Major hat tip to Timmy Hill. He's out there every week. We love him for DFS because we hope he qualifies 30th and he finishes 25th. Like, that's our plan with Timmy Hill, right? We'll
Yeah.
take the inside the top 20 when we get it, but that's really what we want. Dude, 13th place, man, at the old lady in black. Hat tip Timmy Hill.
But it just continues a theme with Timmy Hill in the Truck Series in particular, where here's what I've noticed so far this year with Timmy Hill. He has not qualified better than 27th place this year. And do you
That's
know
awesome.
how many races it's been this season where Timmy Hill has finished better than that?
All of
Take
them,
a guess, Rich.
except for one. It's all but one. It's
yes,
at least
that's
I would
correct.
say the only one I know of where he got wrecked and got mad in the pits. But everything else, I know he's finished ahead of that.
Yeah, Las Vegas was the only race where he failed to finish better than 27th.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Crazy statistic right there.
That is awesome.
Let's quickly go over to the Xfinity Series now, since you did have Byron on the brain there earlier, too.
I did, man. And it's written right here. If I just read instead of trying to go from memory, I'd been fine. And you know what it was? Byron had a similar issue last year in the truck race. Or did he win the truck race? He was in the truck race last year. I know that's where I was getting that crap from.
Oh, yeah, and also just because there was the rain delay for the truck race this year, and then Fox was replaying last year's race, too. That only added to the confusion.
I would say I forgot they did that because I turned it around. I'm like, wait a second. These don't look like the right paint schemes. What is going on? And I had to look. And it was, they got delayed. So I'm sure, you know what? I did watch both of those races. I watched the last year's because of the rain delay and then watched this year. So I am sure that did play into it, Sean. Good call out.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right, so the Xfinity Series race, the main story here, Justin Allgaier, he dominated his way to Darlington victory there. He pretty much dominated that race, led 119 laps. That was the most of any driver there. There were only about 3 other drivers that led laps. Austin Hill, AJ Allmendinger, and the only one that led even double-digit laps other than Allgaier himself was Cole Custer, who led for 21 circuits there, Rich.
Which I was really pushing him for the bets, and honestly, I still think things did not fall right for him at all in that event. He did have one of the top 3 cars. If anybody could even come close to Allgaier, it was Custer, and things didn't fall his way, man. It really did. He just could not. That whole team just kept catching a bad break after a bad break, if you ask me.
Yeah, he came through the field several times, but he still ended up with a strong podium finish in 3rd there.
Yeah. He earned it. So, and hat tip to the junior motorsports cars. 3 of the 4 cars placed in the top 10. Allgaier, Mayer, and Jones.
Actually.
What's that?
5 this week, actually, because the 88 was also there as well.
Oh, that's right. Where did Guapo finish? I didn't even look at that. I meant to check that.
19th.
So he did have a rough go, which is not shocking. I mean, his short track background played well at Bristol, which that experience played well to Dover. This was a whole new animal, man. And so I'm not shocked by that. Majeski, he looked better than where he finished, man. He had a not Majeski.
You mean Sammy Smith?
Sammy Smith. He looked better than where he finished, in my opinion. But they can't seem to get out of their own way this year, bro.
Yeah, Sammy Smith, he had a top 10 run going before basically tire problems did him in there. So right. Unfortunate for him. But the other 3 JRM cars, Allgaier who won, Sam Mayer who ended up with the top 5 finish in 4th. And then you had Brandon Jones just sneaking into the top 10 in the 10th position there. JRM still had a pretty good day overall.
And, Brandon Jones just keeps all of a sudden, looking better and better. Last year was kind of a massive disappointment, in my opinion, from him. This year, he's kind of impressing me. And hat tip to Sam Mayer, although the penalty they got this weekend's not going to help their cause for the championship or anything. But, hey, hat tip to Mayer. They finally kind of found something. I hope that's not what they were illegal, but, yeah. And, Allgaier just – look, and we talked about Allgaier. I had him in the overview article. I'm not shocked that he dominated. He's been one of these races for him has been brewing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just because we also seen him dominate at a few of the other races earlier in the year. He made his presence known at Dover. He
Yep.
almost won at Phoenix until the car
Yep.
broke on him. So Allgaier's had a win coming. He's been running too well not to have a day like this end in victory. So
Right.
it's been a long time coming.
Right. So a couple of standout finishers here. Eric Amarola, 5th. Not shocked, right? We expect him to do well, right? Parker Kligerman, 6th. They've needed a bounce back week. They got it. Jesse Love. I tell you what, see, now that run in 8th place for this young man, that matters to me, because this is not a track that it's for the faint of heart or the inexperienced. He's not faint of heart, but he's inexperienced. And so in RCR equipment, granted, Austin Hill showed us what's up. Sheldon Creed, he's still, I had higher hopes for him by now, especially after the change to JGR, but we haven't really seen it yet out of the 18. Brandon Jones, we talked about. William Byron, after digging himself out of the hole, being 3 laps down. Ryan Sieg with a nice bounce back 13th place finish. That was fun to see. Anthony Alfredo on 14th. And hey, SVG just keeps learning. A nice 15th place finish for him. So hat tip to those guys.
And then while we're still on the Xfinity Series, let's give a hat tip to DFS Marlin, Mark Hogan, for that Austin Hill bet that he placed the top 5 bet. He put 2.5 units down, and Hill ended up finishing 2nd there. He almost won this race.
His first official NASCAR bet for us, right, for Fantasy Guru. He pushed it hard. He did, he's like, hey, you don't have to tail me, but I'm going hard. 2.5 units is his. He felt good about it. And frankly, it was a phenomenal bet. I loved it when I saw him post it. I'm more upset I didn't push it on the Thursday article than anything. And I was cheering for it the whole way. And honestly, at one point, I thought he might figure out a way to get the win. Austin Hill just always seems to show up at the right time in the right places. But that was a great run for the 21 team.
Yes, indeed. I had Austin Hill as one of my potential favorites to win during this past weekend. And although that still hit because Allgaier was listed, Hill was on that list too. So, hey, I'll take that too.
I had him listed in bold at 12 plus 1,200 on Thursday's article. So that was, quote unquote, one of my favorite bets to win. We were there. So that's why when Mark took that angle, I was like, Mark, that's thinking, man. Because the wife always tells me, I'm going to take the guys you like. I'm going to bet top 5s.
Yes.
Mark nailed it. Mark nailed it. And top 3 was a good call. That really was.
For sure.
In fact, like you said, Austin Hill was one of the only lap leaders. Granted, it was only 6 laps. But, hey, it is what it is. It's Darlington. We knew that was going to happen. We said that last week that, hey, we're going to have to find the dominators. There'll be a handful that move up, but don't expect a lot of movement forward. It's tough. Cup Series. Bro, I love your theme here, Sean, so take us through it.
Breaking is the theme of the race. That word, breaking, because there was broken streaks, broken temperatures, broken cars, broken tempers. There is a lot to talk about with the Cup Series race in particular. Kyle Larson ended up winning the first stage. Tyler Reddick ended up winning the second stage. Reddick was the dominant car of the day. He ended up leading the most laps there. So he really was in contention throughout the whole way. And then there was Ty Gibbs, and then the eventual race winner, Brad Keselowski, who also had strong days by remaining inside the top 3 at the end of both stages and at the end of the race right there, too. So those drivers all had strong runs.
Yes. And look, a day for Ty Gibbs is coming, folks. It's coming. We're going to be celebrating Ty Gibbs in victory lane here sooner than later. Reddick, he sent it. And unfortunately, with this car, you do that, you're cutting tires. And I hate it. We this isn't the only car we've ever done that with, that it's like this. We've seen this in the past before. NASCAR had always kind of found a way to change or help fix that. It's unfortunate because, it was very reminiscent, as people have pointed out, to Kurt Busch's and Ricky Craven's finish, where Ricky sent it in there. They got into each other, but these are not the same cars. We did not get to see that because, unfortunately, it took both the first and second place cars out in Chris Buescher and Tyler Reddick. And Brad Keselowski was lurking. He was lurking, man. And, you know,
Yep.
he got kind of, I won't say screwed, but he kind of got screwed at Talladega. Well, payback. The lady in black decided, Brad, we owed you one. So
yeah.
I was really happy to see Brad Keselowski take the checkered flag, man.
And not to mention in this paint scheme we talked about last week there. Let's not forget
That's
there,
right.
Rich.
These paint schemes keep coming up, John. We never did go back and look, but I feel like there's a theme with the paint schemes and winners that we're going to have to tap into.
Yeah, definitely for sure there, but had to bring the image back for that one because I mean it was a special scheme, and then Brad he's ended up snapping a 110 race winless streak. Yeah, both Reddick and Chris Buescher, they lose flat tires, but then Buescher ends up confronting Reddick after the race. He said he's tired of losing, and well, there was a lot of conversation on the internet wondering if Chris Buescher should change his driving style a little bit after this, since he's been close the last 2 races to winning.
I hope he doesn't, and I'm with Brad Keselowski, who said, don't do it. Don't change your driving style. The wins will come. You keep doing what you're doing. You're doing it right. There's a reason that these guys haven't, you know, Denny Hamlin said it best when he was talking about Kyle Larson. It gets tough racing against guys that are willing to wreck to win. Tyler Reddick's one of those guys willing to wreck to win. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I have a problem when you take out other drivers. I don't like that Reddick made that move at that point in the race. You know, the difference between Ricky Craven's move was what, 2-3 laps to go? Not 10. There's a big difference in taking your shot with 2 laps to go and cutting tires versus taking it with 10 laps to go. So that's my problem with it. Tyler, there was no need to force the issue, bro. You had the faster car, and yeah, it may have been a battle, but if you're going to send it, do it on the final lap there. You know,
yeah,
this way, if you guys if you limp around, you're limping around to the checkered. Don't do it where you cost yourself a top 5 because you went extreme. That would be my only take. But Chris Buescher is going to get a win. And, you know, you mentioned this, Sean, earlier in the week and I didn't realize this, that Ford is testing a new motor. And maybe that's why we're seeing the Fords, you know, competing a little bit here, man.
Yeah, it absolutely does seem to be the case. RFK, Brad Keselowski, he mentioned last week at Kansas they bought an experimental new engine for Chris Buescher's team. We know he ended up nearly winning at Kansas. So, and Ford, they've been saying that they've been trying different things out each and every week just to find more speed. And then, boom, they seem to have finally found it this week. And as a result, Ford finally prevailed with their first NASCAR win of the year in any of the 3 national series right there.
And they had a good showing. They were first and third with 10 laps to go. So it's not like they were lucking into it.
Nah, RFK, though, they've been showing a lot of strength. It seems like they've been the fastest Ford cars within the past couple of weeks, really, though. RFK.
And interestingly enough, Stuart Haas isn't far behind. You know, we automatically think it's Team Penske, but honestly, the last month or last 2 weeks, it's been RFK and Stuart Haas that have been looking much stronger. In fact, shout out to some standout finishers. We mentioned Ty Gibbs finishing second, Josh Berry, Stuart Haas driver third, Chase Briscoe, Stuart Haas driver fifth, Bubba Wallace finally getting a finish. And we thought his day was done with one of those wrecks earlier in the day. He finished seventh. Bowman finished eighth. Justin Haley.
That's a big
I was this close to pushing and using him, man. We got to go back to really considering him. This Rick Ware racing equipment, you first ever top 10 on a non-drafting track, but their finishing rate. Look, you and I, but biggest complaint with them, we don't think they finish races. They're finishing races now.
Yeah. Rick Ware Racing is no longer a joke, people. We have to take them kind of seriously now.
And Haley's a legit driver. I hoped he had gone to a stronger team, but maybe he knew something we didn't know. I'm not shocked about Justin Haley being a top 10 guy. I'm more shocked he's doing it in the equipment he's is. But at this point, we have to be honest about the data in front of our face. Michael McDowell, 10th. Noah Gragson, 14th. Todd Gilliland finally getting another Ford. Look, Michael McDowell and Gilliland teammates finishing 10th and 15th.
Top 15
Reddick.
for both front row cars.
Right. Reddick finished 32nd after leading the most laps. and he still ended up the 4th highest scorer on DraftKings. This is why we say you have to hit the dominators. 32nd. If we go into the week and say Tyler Reddick is going to finish 32nd, you're like, well, I'm not using my lineups. 4th highest score. And he was not one of the highest price drivers. That would have been Larson and Hamlin, et cetera, et cetera. So something to keep in mind.
I'll give you a little quick quiz here, Rich. Who do you think was the highest scorer on DraftKings this past weekend?
Ooh, highest score?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Josh Berry.
You're correct. Place differential right there and the finishing position. That made him just get a few more points. It was not by much, but he beat out Brad Kay for being the highest scorer.
I'm going to say I think he beat out because I remember looking at a couple lineups. And yeah, because Barry started 23rd, I want to say. So you figure 3rd place finish plus 20 bonus points. I mean, to give you an idea, if Tyler Reddick get the 20 bonus points, he had to have led 0.25. He had to lead like almost 100 laps just to get that.
Yeah, Reddick ended up leading 174 laps, while Josh Berry, he ended up starting from the 33rd position.
Oh, 33rd. So he gained 30 points. So in order for Reddick to score 30 points, Sean, leading laps,
he had
to lead 120.
Yeah,
which he did. Plus. But I mean, that's 120 laps. You don't see that every week. So again, this is place differential. And look, Sean and I were on Barry. I don't think we were pushing him for a top 5. I think we both were like, hey, inside the top 20 almost feels like a lock. So we'll take the 13 to 15 place differential points. But this is why it matters. Recent history matters. I know small data samples aren't ideal, but when it comes to NASCAR, last 2 weeks, the last 3 weeks, the last 4 weeks, they matter a lot. They, in my opinion, they matter as much as a driver's track and team history. Because oftentimes, all they needed was to get the car to feel better, to do better at these other tracks. You know, part of the reason this driver or team doesn't have good history there is they haven't had the speed. Well, if they're showing speed the last 3 weeks and now they struggle, well, that's something worth noting too. But if I'm pushed or shoved here, Sean, I lean on more recent history than anything else. It's why we've been looking at Chase Elliott so much.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been pointing it out here. I mentioned it even in the Cup Series right up there with Josh Berry. He's been finishing top 15 in a lot of the recent races so far. I thought he was going to end up finishing top 15 again. The practice speeds were indicating that he'd be close to a top 10. He did way better than that and finished 3rd. So there you go.
Well, let's get into some news for the week because we have a ton of news to cover, Sean. There is so much news. It's coming out our ears.
Yeah, I think we might have to go a little bit rapid fire with this one because there's a lot of little stories here. So we'll get some quick reactions. But first things first, let's go over some broadcasting-based announcements for next season here. With NASCAR beginning to run an in-season tournament during the TNT portion of the 2025 Cup Series schedule. So here's a little bit of details here for how it works here. Seeding for the in-season tournament, it's going to be set from the final 3 Amazon Prime races. The tournament itself will take place during the entire TNT portion of the season, with 32 drivers participating. Best finish moves forward through each race until the last racer is standing, and the winner will win $1 million. So there you go.
I get people have said this is no different than the Dash for Cash. Fair. The Dash for Cash, though, all I looked at was the funny color spoilers or number and see who was ahead of the other. And I was, woohoo. I mean, that was the gist of it. Look, if this gets people excited to tune in, have at it. $1 million doesn't move the needle for me, man. And not in today's world. So, cool. We have a 3rd champion to crown during the year now. Awesome. I know Denny Hamlin loves it, and it's his idea. I mocked it when he said it. I mean, when he made the comment last year, I was like, why? If you want to do it at the end of the year instead of our playoff system, I'd be okay with that because I don't like the playoff system as it is. So if you're going to go wild card and do something like that, then at least as a fan at the track, I know going into the events who I'm watching these two drivers. I'm watching these two, you know what I mean? I know there's 32. So there's 16 sets of drivers that I'm curious if one finishes ahead of the other and then goes down to 8. Honestly, I would rather see us do that than what we currently do for the playoffs.
You know, what I will say is I hope that the sports books can take notice of this and the fact that maybe they could set head-to-head bets based on each matchup next year. That would be pretty cool.
Now, I tell you what, you want to get me excited about this deal? That would do it for me. I agree with you. Because then they don't get to choose who the matchups are. We already know the choice. They got to set the lines, and we get to figure out if we want to bet them.
Yeah, I like there's different ways you could play off of this concept right here in order to make NASCAR races a little more exciting. So in a sense, it's kind of a little bit of a matter of perspective of how you want to attack this sort of thing. And I think it could be interesting. The possibilities they could bring is interesting. That's all I'm going to really say about that.
Fair enough. As you mentioned, TNT will begin their schedule. It'll start with Atlanta. And you mentioned this too. That means Atlanta's second date that was currently at the start of the playoffs or one of the rounds, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be in the playoffs this year. Next year, it will not.
It won't be. Right. It'll be at the launch of the TNT coverage. And then Amazon also begins their coverage, and that starts with the Coke 600 on Memorial Day weekend. As someone who is not a fan of Amazon and doesn't use Amazon, I am salty AF. I used it for Thursday Night Football. I hated it. Their coverage was fine. Their product was fine. The NFL product, it's Thursday Night Football. It hasn't been good in a while. And let me give a little background on why I'm so frustrated with this whole TV stuff, okay? I remember going to my grandfather's house to watch racing as a kid, or at my home, but a lot of times my grandfather's the one, my uncle and grandfather's what got me into racing. Whether it was the newspaper, it was usually the TV guide. We went looking through and we'd have to hunt down the NASCAR. Sometimes it was on TNN, sometimes it was on TBS, sometimes it was on ESPN, sometimes it was on Speed Channel, all this. Cool. It was just something we were used to. Times changed. It is what it was. NASCAR decided then at one point we need to be on mainstay TV. And so we're going to go to, I believe it was Fox at the time. And Fox is going to have us on the main network. Well, that only works for so long. And then they had to go to a Fox Sports network or Fox Sports 2 network. And we saw the same thing when NBC got involved. ESPN lost it, and it went to, I don't remember who it went to at that point. But then we were watching on cable TNT, and you needed all these different sports packages. Well, what was happening was I had to keep upping my cable satellite package to get Speed Vision so I could get NASCAR Race Hub or the synopsis of the week or whatever, or one of the races, or I had to up it to get Fox Sports 2, or I had to up it to, I was constantly calling my contact or my cable or satellite provider going, why don't I have this channel? I need to make a switch. So I'm going to switch to a different provider, and I need to buy up a higher end package. I constantly felt like I was forced to spend more money, forced to do more in order to be a fan of the sport. They're doing the same thing here, man. And it's gotten even worse because now instead of me just calling, choosing between cable or satellite, now I'm having to subscribe to multiple things. And I don't even want to use them. People are like, oh, but Amazon's great. That's cool if you use Amazon. I don't. I like to go touch the stuff I buy. I don't like stuff being shipped to me and having issues and having to send them back. I don't use it. It's not a product for me. I'm glad that other people do. But now I'm forced to buy something I'm not ever else going to use to watch 4 races in a month, man. And NFL's doing the same, bro. And I'm burned on it, man. I really am. I mean, spending, what is Amazon? Do you have Amazon? Do you know how much it is a month by chance?
I believe it is about $19.99 a month.
I thought it was 17. I thought it was $17 or $20 a month, right?
I think that's like the no ads version. I think if you decide to get it with ads, it's a little bit cheaper. Well, then again, that might just be Prime Video. I know Prime has their whole umbrella of different things, including music and the Prime shipping and all that too. So
Right. And I don't use that stuff though. So like, it's money that I feel like I'm just wasting, And like you and I talked about off air, people are like, well, you can go to YouTube. Here's the deal. My wife and I are old. We're in our 40s. We have shows we like to watch. We have things we like to do. There's certain shows that she really enjoys watching and we record and take care of. It's not on all those platforms. There's certain sports I like to watch. I can't get one platform that covers them all. ESPN Plus doesn't give you Monday Night Football. You've got to have some sort of cable package. Sunday Ticket doesn't get you the local games. It never did, but at least with DirecTV, I had an 8-game feed. So it was all there anyway. With YouTube, I can only get 4. So I had to buy a second TV just to get the 8 games I used to watch. And because I don't have the local stuff on YouTube, I've got a whole nother mess I've got to create with a third TV or a fourth TV to get the local stuff because there's no way to mix and match them. And by the way, for folks that don't notice, your streaming stuff is a good 3 minutes behind. Like I can put on two with both my TVs. I'll put 2 different things up, especially if they do, ESPN does the double game thing. You know what I mean? Like they have Peyton on, whatever. It is amazing to me how that streaming feed is so far behind, bro. Way behind. And if you're going to do any live betting, good luck with that, man. Good luck. So, oh, well, I'm sorry. I got us on a tangent, Sean. Take it away from me, man.
All right. So speaking of TNT, though, TNT is going to have a familiar face in the booth, though, as well as Amazon Prime for both of their races next year. And that's Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's moving on from NBC this season, as we know. He's not going to be on any of the NBC broadcasts this year. He is going to be in the booth for both TNT and Amazon Prime's 5 race stints. So a total of 10 races right there, Rich.
Good for him. I don't really like him as play-by-play. I wish they had him more as kind of like what they used to do with Steve Letarte a couple of years ago and Larry Mack, where they kind of just went to him for some stuff. You know what I mean? Those guys obviously added more of a crew chief or pit or machine or team type of perspective. But I love Junior. You and I talked about, I think he's going to do way more positive for the sport outside the race car. But, man, I am over the yelling in the booth. So I'm looking forward to him not being on NBC this year. I'm hoping TNT and Amazon kind of figure out a better fit for him because I do think he needs to be involved in the TV broadcast. I just don't know him being in the booth hollering about passing is the way to go.
Well, there's a pretty good chance that he's probably not going to be alone in the booth, more than likely. I don't know who is going to be in the booth with him. But I think Amazon and TNT are kind of just feeling out who they could potentially consider to be in the booth with Junior.
Alan Bestwick.
I mean, come on. That's what
Alan
everybody
Bestwick
says. So
Alan Bestwick, the man needs a job again. Alan Bestwick, and bring back Dr. Jerry Punch.
Let's make it happen there, Amazon and
make
TNT.
It happen.
Now, getting into our next story here, you mentioned about we talked off air about this too, about somebody trying to do the double. Well, one person that is going to do the double other than Kyle Larson is Jimmy Johnson, but he's doing it in his own fashion. He's joining the broadcast for the Indy 500 with NBC, and then he's going to be racing in the Coke 600 for Legacy Motor Club there, Rich. So Jimmy doing the double too, in a way.
It's a good fit for him. He's one of the few that have driven both cars recently, right? So, I mean, he can offer some perspective on the new next-gen car for NASCAR because he's only started recently driving it. So the challenges, the differences, he can speak to that a lot like Kevin Harvick could. So that's cool to see. He's also recently got out of an Indy car not that long ago from driving full-time. He didn't have a lot of success, but he could speak to differences, and he can speak to personally things Kyle Larson's doing, right? Because he's going from 2 very different types of cars. Now, Kyle Larson does this all the time, racing on dirt the way he does. But look, I'll dog on Jimmy. I just don't want him racing anymore, man. I don't want you being in the Hall of Fame and a Hall of Fame nominee while you're still clearly racing cars and thinking you can compete, even though you can't. So I'm all for this. I wish they would do some sort of contest for a fan. or multiple fans. I mean, I challenge. I've done it. I mean, I've gone to both races, not the same time, but I challenge anyone to try to be a fan for both of these events, man. It's a full freaking day. Let me tell you, I do it in my lazy boy. I can't imagine going from the track and taking a helicopter ride, but I think they should do it for a fan. But bring it on, Jimmy.
Well, also, Jimmy did say he is going to be joining the Cup Series broadcast as well for 3 NBC races, including Daytona later this year, Talladega later this year, and the championship race at Phoenix. So we'll be seeing Jimmy, at least in the studio, doing some analysis there too.
I'm okay with that. Let's ride.
Anyway, let's get ourselves into some quick silly season rumors. There's been a lot of discussion this week about wondering if Kaulig Racing is going to merge with Trackhouse Racing in the Cup Series. Now, Brett Griffin, he's a spotter. He's also one of the hosts of the Door Bumper Clear podcast. He says it might be possible. He's going to bring Chris Rice onto the show soon in order to ask him straight up about that. But then Chris Rice, he went on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, and he basically denied it. So we don't know what's happening, but something's happening behind the scenes over there at Kaulig. So,
one, don't trust Chris Rice. I don't have a problem with him as a human in general, but as part owner for what I still refer to as the Cleveland Indians, he's made some comments and things like that I just, in the past, and don't take him. He's a businessman. Don't take him at his word. Okay, I'll say that much. That being said, I never thought that this merger made a lot of sense. Both teams want to grow. There's enough shrinkage taking place in other parts of NASCAR and concerns that I don't think the best way to grow is to take two-car teams and put them together, because now you're a 4-car team. I think you're much better off grabbing a third charter, maybe 2 charters, making your own 4-car team. I could be way off base on this. You know, Kaulig with Spire and their whole Chevy relationship, right? Kaulig's missing. They're not nearly as strong at Cup this year as they were last year, so that's something to take notice of. Honestly, Trackhouse isn't quite either, to be fair. I mean, they're solid, but they're not what they looked like, coming out of the gates with the new next-gen car. So maybe it does happen, but if I'm either of those owners, I don't think that merger makes a lot of sense, especially with all the scuttlebutt about Stewart-Haas.
It's interesting, though, considering that the two teams, though, Kaulig and Trackhouse, they did do that crew chief swap earlier in the year between
that's true,
with Daniel Suarez and one of their cars over at Kaulig.
That's true. That's very true. I tell you what, let me put it to you this way then. If this merger is true and does take place, what's the story with Stewart-Haas then?
Well, there's been all sorts of different speculation upon it, but we still don't know which direction it's directly heading. We know there's going to be some discussion and maybe some potential charter selling going on. We just don't know if it's going to be the whole team or if it's just going to be half the team or something else.
But I guess my point is that takes the two biggest names we heard about buying charters out of the mix. Because if they merge, they can't buy any more charters. They're a 1-4-car team. That's it. They're blocked up. They're full. So now we got to look at 2311, Penske. I doubt Wood Brothers, but I mean, they could obviously add or do something there.
Front row
definitely comes into play, right? Legacy, because they only have 3, right?
Well, Legacy only has 2. They have the 42 and the 43.
Okay, so Legacy, Spire, right? They've already been buying some up because they have more room for one more, right? So I'm just saying it completely changes all the recent rumors we've been hearing. That's all I'm getting at. But look, it's silly season, Sean. This shit's going to change up teen times. We've talked more about the offseason this year before Memorial Day weekend in quite some time. Normally, silly season doesn't really get rolling till June, July. So we got a lot to hear about, and that's not even addressing the silly season of what's the NASCAR revenue sharing with the team plan.
That's something that's still being discussed, but they're hoping to have the deal done pretty soon. Definitely before next season. They want to get it done before next season. That is for sure.
They have to get it done before next season, right? Otherwise, there is no season. I'm just saying. I mean,
Aye.
there's no money going to the teams if that's the case. The teams they got no stake in the pie. It's going to be race winnings only.
Imagine we see a walkout kind of like what MLB did in 1994.
John,
So.
I'm starting to wonder if that's a very likely scenario. Like I'm really starting to be concerned. That's a plausible situation.
Whew, we're going to have to keep up with this story in the coming weeks to see how it further develops with that. But in the meantime, all we got is rumors to go off of.
Well, let's hit the penalty report and then move on to our plans for this week. What do you say?
Yeah, Darlington penalty report. There was one bigger penalty for Xfinity. Sam Mayer's number one team. They get hit with an L1 penalty. The loss of 10 driver and owner points. Crew chief Marty Lindley was fined $10K and suspended for one race. That will be taking place during the next Xfinity race over at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
I'll say that'll be Memorial Day weekend. They'll race Saturday.
Yeah, because the Xfinity Series is off this week.
Yep.
It was discovered that the team made a change to the car that would have necessitated it to go through the recertification process. This was exactly what they cited on the penalty, what NASCAR has said has happened, so that's the result of that.
10-4.
And as for the other penalties, we had two Truck Series teams get penalties. Nick Sanchez and Matt Crafton's teams both scored penalties for violating crew protective clothing and equipment. Each team is losing one pit crew member for the North Wilkesboro race this weekend there, Rich.
Yeah, the clothing one gets me every time, dude. But hey, if you want to burn your face off and your hands off, go for it, I guess is my stance.
To your discretion, I guess.
Right.
Alrighty. You know what? Let's just quickly go over to our paint schemes for the week. We got other news stories, but we'll have to shift some of them towards the next show next week.
And I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed for an all-star race. I'm a little disappointed in the paint schemes this week, bro.
Yeah, there were some paint schemes that are basically just like, oh, it's a lot of the regular paint schemes, but we still have some fire paint schemes that we can talk about this week there, Rich. How about I'll get us started off here because I really wanted to talk about this particular one. It's Austin Cindric's new Keystone Light paint scheme. Now, this is a blue car. It's got red, white on it. It's got like the little American flag kind of trails on it. Keystone Light. It's a very nice looking car. Overall, big fan of this one there, Rich.
I don't like the blue number. I think it's weird. I get it matches the light from the Keystone, but yeah.
Maybe it'll pop out when it's night racing, though. It'll look a little bit better then.
That's fair.
Although, I think also with the stars and stripes, though, it makes you think. Maybe they could have just saved this scheme for next week at Charlotte.
That's the other part that bothers me is I feel like this is a perfect scheme for next weekend. So I'm a little perturbed by it.
Fair enough. I still like this paint scheme quite a bit, as do I with my other paint scheme choice there, Rich, with Chris Buescher's new Fastenal paint scheme. There's been a number of different Fastenal paint schemes, but this one is new. It's got a lot of white, blue. We got the chrome numbers going on, the signature RFK imagery.
It looks fast.
Yeah. Took the words right out of my mouth there, Rich.
It looks fast, man.
It looks fast. Big fan of this one, too. And I like the little render here with Chris Buescher and the car next to the moon there. That's pretty cool, actually, too.
I get you, man. I dig it.
And one other paint scheme I did want to shout out this week, because it's a very interesting-looking one, Ross Chastain's new Busch Light flannel scheme. So, brand new paint scheme here. Another one based on some sort of piece of clothing or something you wear, because he had the Crocs scheme about a week or two ago. So, but flannel, I'm a fan of this one. This one looks very interesting to me. I like it.
Fair enough, man. The Busch Light just keeps coming up with the really complicated, busy kind of paint schemes, but they've been fun.
This is like a paint scheme where you can go forth and literally wear it.
Right. Makes me think of hunting season.
I mean, I'm wearing some stuff right now. There you go.
There you go. Even has the right color scheme.
Yeah. Now I'm hoping that paint scheme does well. We've talked about the paint scheme choices being onto something. Now I'm doubly hoping so I could be like, hey, I wore the actual paint scheme that did well. So there you go. Rich, let's get into your choices here real quick. So what do you want to talk about first? What do you
Hey,
got?
we got. I like the old school look, man. I saw it. And it just reminded me of what the car used to look like. Some of the Napa schemes they've run, I've been kind of meh. So give me Chase Elliott with this old school, very basic Napa scheme, man. Maybe it's the little yellow
Yes.
stripe that reminds me a little bit of the old senior cars, but it reminds me of just an old race car, man.
This is actually Chase Elliott's regular Napa scheme for this whole season. This is his
Have we
primary.
seen it yet? I don't
Yeah,
remember seeing
it
it
has
before.
been on the track a few times this year. Here's one such case where
go.
it was at Dover.
Okay. But yeah, I dig it. It just maybe it's because of last weekend I'm feeling nostalgia still, but yeah, give me this Chase Elliott Napa ride.
I still think this is one of Chase's best Napa primary variants for a season, though. It is a really nice looking car.
I agree with that statement.
Blue, the yellow logos, the white stripes, very clean and sleek.
Yep.
So let's get into your next choice here.
Dude, this one, and I think it's more the sponsor than anything, man. Give me Ricky Stenhouse in the Icy Hot car. I just think it looks cool. And I don't know if it's the Icy Hot logo. I don't know if it's the colors. I don't know if it's because I use Icy Hot, but I just think this car looks fast, man.
I do like this car too overall. I do wish they could have done something a little bit towards the back part of the sides a little bit more instead of just leaving it blank. But other than that, I do like this scheme a bit too. And I like how the light blue parts of the car at the top and on the side skirts there are icy blue, kind of like the icy part of the Icy Hot logo. And then the number is kind of like red, just like the red part of the Icy Hot logo. Right. And how the hood looks, too, is pretty nice, too. I like what they did with the hood.
Yeah. So I'm digging this car. I do want to give a shout out. I don't know if you've got the pictures handy, but both Bubba Wallace and Austin Dillon, I think they're very, very simplistic cars, but they're subtle. They're really subtle. The All True logo with Bubba.
Yep. There's the front view and the side view, posted by NASCAR in 2311 themselves. And then we also have Austin Dillon with his Scenic scheme there. Brand new paint scheme this week there, too. New sponsor for that 3 team.
I just think it looks cool, man. I like the fade blue to dark. I just think it looks cool.
That's going to look nice in the All-Star Open if we can even see it. So there you go.
Right. And tell you what, that's a shame. This car would look sexy under the lights for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's that regarding our paint schemes for this week here. Rich, let's just talk about the race weekend itself. North Wilkesboro and All-Star weekend. We got a truck race. We got the All-Star race. Xfinity is off. Let's set the stage here, Rich. Let us do it.
All right. So here's the deal. Trucks are going back short track racing. Unlike last year, we don't have anywhere near as many Cup guys stepping down. We got Ross Chastain. We got Sammy Smith coming over from Xfinity. We got a couple other, typical drivers in play there. Eric Almirola is going to be driving his truck race for the first time since 2012. So
yeah, and Hattori Racing.
Yep. Connor Jones will be back in a ride. Stephen Parsons, Jack Wood. So our typical one-off cast of characters, if you will. So I'm looking forward to that, obviously. We should cover a couple of things for the All-Star race, though. So first things first, there will be qualifying. Qualifying will take place as the car will leave pit road, will go around, it hits the start-finish line, does that lap, comes into pit road, does a 4-tire pit stop. There are timing lines, one stop, one pit stall before, one pit stall after. That's going to time your pit stop for the pit crew challenge. You do your 4-tire stop, you come out, you go back around, cross the start-finish line, boom, that's your lap. Your total time is your total time for the qualifying run. We set the field that way. And that is true for the Open and the All-Star race. Now, the Open qualifies separate from the All-Star race, but they both have the same process. The Pit Crew Challenge will be the timing that took place between those two timing lines on pit road. There's a whole pit crew challenge. We used to do a whole thing at the arena in Charlotte, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is whoever wins the pit crew challenge gets pit stall selection. So the best team gets number 1 pit stall selection, number 2, and so on and so forth, instead of doing it by qualifying time the previous weekend like we have done in the past for other races. Now that we have the All-Star race set, so to speak, your inside row is going to do a heat race. Your outside row is going to do a heat race. How they finish, much like we do Daytona on the duels, that's where they will start. So if you end up winning your heat race, you are starting first of all the runs from the inside row. If you were third in your heat race, you will start inside row 3. Same thing for the ones on the outside. Same thing goes. Now, that's only for 17 drivers, though, Sean. It's my understanding we have 20 drivers that take place in the All-Star race.
That is correct, because the last 3 positions of the All-Star race are going to be determined by the 2 winners of the All-Star Open and 1 driver that wins the All-Star fan voting. So,
and here's the curve. Heat races are Saturday. The Open is Sunday, right before the All-Star race. So we're going to do heat races.
2.5 hours before the All-Star race at that.
So we're going to do the heat races and all that figured out. Actually, we're going to do qualifying Friday. I'm almost positive qualifying Friday. Then the heat race and the truck race Saturday. Heat races and truck race Saturday. Then we got the Open and the All-Star race Sunday, where we'll find out the final field. So for DFS purposes, you're going to have to wait till Sunday. You can do your lineups, but heads up, unless you guess right on the Open, guys, you have no idea which those 3 guys are. We know one of the 5 that were the top 5 in voting will be in, because presumably 2 of them could race in. That would still leave 1 of the 3 left who are leading the top 5 in voting. I doubt we see a surprise contender for the voting, so that could take place. But, it's going to be a mess, so just deal with it.
Yeah, not exactly the cleanest race to preview.
No. Also, you get 9 sets of tires, 5 primes, 4 options. I'm not going to talk about the wet tires. The wet tires would take place of anything if we had to go wet tire racing. But for all intents and purposes, we have a softer, faster tire that is actually made from the same compound as the wet tires, just without the groove. So it's a slick. That'll be marked with red lettering. So it'll say Goodyear in red instead of yellow. The primes will be in yellow. You have to start. You get 9 sets. You get 4 sets, 2 and 2 for the All-Star race itself. The other 5 sets are for your practice, qualifying, and heat races. The only rule about the option tire is you have to start the All-Star race on the option tire. Now, there's a midway point that you have to do a 4-tire stop in the heat race. There's a midway point you have to do a 4-tire stop in the Open. There is a midway point. That's not quite. Yeah, it is midway, 100 laps, that you have to do a 4-tire stop in the All-Star race. So, a lot going on. Strategy is going to be key. Sean, I don't really have a lot of predicting to do at this point. Frankly, I'm looking forward to the heat races.
Yeah, the heat races should be pretty interesting to check out, especially considering that it's going to be setting up the field for both the Open and the All-Star race itself, as well as giving us a little bit of a taste of what to expect on Sunday as well.
100% agree, because I wish the Open was on Saturday, but it's not. So my wish is not granted.
Nope. But this is why I'm going to say it's important for all of you that are listening or watching our podcast to go forth into our Discord channel in order to talk about the All-Star race if you're planning on betting or doing DFS for it, because there's such little leeway between the Open and the All-Star race itself that feasibly changing your lineups around is going to be very, very important, especially if you're doing DFS. Now, if you're doing betting, which I think this race is definitely better when it comes to doing betting compared to DFS, this is the sort of track where if you wanted to bet on the softer lines, it's not a bad idea to do so, especially considering some of the lines that are out there with some of the sports books are a little bit deeper with some of the drivers that can realistically have a chance in order to even race their way through the Open as well. So that's something to really keep in mind for this week's action.
I'm in 100% agreement, man. I think we kind of both touched on who we think advances from the Open, maybe not. But look, I got to believe it's going to be Ty Gibbs, Josh Berry, or Bubba Wallace. I got to believe 2 of those 3 are going to be race their way in. That's how I see it happening.
Yeah, I think just because, funny enough, Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry, we named the two drivers that ended up racing their way through the Open last year at North Wilkesboro as well. And those two were the two that ended up dominating the Open last year as well. So something to keep in mind there. And as for Bubba Wallace, he was very fast, and he was second in last year's All-Star race, and it was the only driver that realistically was even somewhat trying to match the speed of Kyle Larson when he won last year. But Bubba, he's one of the top 5 in the fan voting here. Let's just quickly name those drivers. We have Alex Bowman, Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar, Corey LaJoie, and Bubba Wallace. One of those 5 is going to get into the All-Star race through the fan vote, so we have to keep that in mind as we make our picks. But I do think that Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry, they're the two drivers that I've seen the most speed out of at short tracks this season are participating in the Open. So I think those two have the best shot of getting in.
I don't disagree. And like you said, Bubba was so good last year. I don't think we should sleep on Carson Hocevar or Noah Gragson either. But if we're going to nail down 2, I can't get past Gibbs and Berry. And like I said, Wallace was so good in the All-Star event itself. I won't be shocked to see him right there at the front.
Yeah, I do think about that too, just because 2311, they did very well at North Wilkesboro last year. They've improved their short track program overall. Both him and Tyler Reddick. We know Reddick is in the All-Star race there, and we'll talk a little bit more about Reddick in a little bit. But yeah, 2311, they're a team to watch.
For sure. And we are going to get in the All-Star event here. And here's the deal. Something I cautioned everybody in the overview article. Folks, we normally have 36 to 38 drivers to choose from on any given Sunday. We have 20. Right now, you only have 17 to go actually lock in that are automatically or for sure in. We'll have 20. We're literally going to have to pick 6 drivers for half the spots. Being different is going to be so much harder this week than any other week. So just keep that in mind. But we did scale down our picks because there's so few drivers to pick from. We honestly, it was hard picking value drivers because there were none. There's 2.
Yeah, pretty much as it is with the field being cut in half for the All-Star race. There's going to be a lot of overlap. If you wanted to go forth and play a cash game this week, I'd say that's the best way in order to approach DFS. Cash games purely. For GPP, it's going to be very, very tough because you're going to get a lot of people end up having the same lineup overall there. So stick with betting, stick with cash game lineups is what I would overall recommend. And just with the format of this whole race there too, it's just nutty overall. Very crazy, especially as Rich Maletto has just left the building temporarily. But no, he's coming back in.
Sorry. The dog spit something out, and yeah, so I wanted to grab it.
Maybe he's spitting out the tips in order to have us win money this weekend.
No, but I definitely am going to have to hustle because I've got to go check on the other one because this is – I don't think he was supposed to have something like this, and this was in the new chew thing she gave him, so I need to go hunt. So
okay. So let's just barrel through all our different All-Star race picks here. So
we have a lot of overlap. So there's, Sean and I overlapped a ton this week, just so everybody knows.
All right. Yeah. So there you go. Top price drivers, I just put Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott. Hamlin's been the best driver on short tracks this season. He has 2 short track wins. Been competitive every single time. He's still led in every cup event this year. Can't ignore that. And Elliott, he's a driver that's been pretty solid on the short tracks as well. That 9 team has been hot throughout the last couple of weeks. Give me Elliott right there too.
I like the Elliott call. I don't disagree with it, but I went Larson and Hamlin. I'm with you on Hamlin. I can't shake Larson. I know he spun this week, but he was still like the fastest car all weekend. He's been like the fastest car at this point, it's the Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin show for the most part, unless they have an off week. Hamlin admitted they had an off week and Larson spun it. And that was after he kind of got some tire trouble and got a fender and part of an accident wasn't really his, blah, blah, blah. So give me those 2, 3 if you want to count Elliott. On the mid-tier options, shocker, Sean and I overlap on Tyler Reddick. His price point is stupid low this week, Sean.
It is grossly undervalued on DraftKings in particular. He is 7,700 on DraftKings. And when you consider how well he did in this race last year at North Wilkesboro, as well as the fact he's been improving on the short tracks and just overall some of the drivers priced ahead of him, I am seriously questioning what the idea was in order to price him as low as he was in DraftKings. FanDuel is a little more valid here where he's 9,500, but I still like him enough there too.
I don't disagree, man. I'm with you. I can't shake Brad Keselowski though, dude. I can't. I know he won last week. I'm not saying he wins this week, but like you mentioned earlier, he's been really good the last month. So I'm leaning Brad. His price point is also very attractive.
Another driver whose price point is very attractive and was the other driver that I ended up picking for the mid-tier range. And you could make an argument he might be just about value range depending on where you look, is Ross Chastain. 7,200 on DraftKings. And on FanDuel, he is just $7K. A flat $7K. He's
So
the fifth
cheap,
cheapest
dude.
driver right now of all drivers
So cheap.
on FanDuel that are
So
locked
cheap,
in.
dude. I don't get it. But here again, they don't hire us. So shame on them. They probably should, but whatever. Sleepers and bargains. But we literally had 4 to choose from.
Yeah, pretty much. Although I listed 2 drivers here, one of which we overlap on, and that's Daniel Suarez, just Trackhouse equipment. He ended up leading laps in last year's All-Star race as well.
He ran well into heat race. He fell off, but it's not like he fell way off. He finished inside the top 10. I'm with you, right? Not to mention he's the only one locked in that I felt really comfortable with. The next lowest priced driver I want to say that's locked in was Ricky Stenhouse. I like Ricky Stenhouse, but I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? So,
well, there's 3 drivers
McDowell
cheaper than Suarez on DraftKings in particular, and
okay,
on
my bad.
and that's the same case on FanDuel. It's the same 3 drivers on both sites. That's
Gotcha.
McDowell, Allmendinger, and Stenhouse. Of those 3, I think McDowell is the other driver I'd consider out of this group in order to have a decent finish, I'd say. Especially if he ends up qualifying deep enough in the field. I think you can get some use out of there for the price point. But I think the important caveat that we have to mention is that this part of the list is pretty likely to change based on who gets in from the All-Star Open, especially if there's an open driver or 2 that's around this price point that ends up making it in.
100% in agreement. In fact, I even went off the board and said, look, I'm leaning Josh Berry here. If he doesn't make it, I will likely lean on whoever does, whether that's Hocevar, whether that's Wallace is too high priced. Berry, Noah Gragson, any of these guys make it. I'm going to probably want to just to have that value so that I could go get maybe a Denny Hamlin and a Larson, or maybe a Hamlin and an Elliott, something like that. Because as we talked about, you're only going to have 1 or 2 lap leaders that are going to make a difference. And they're going to make a significant difference, but you're only going to get 1 or 2.
And especially since we're using the short track rules package this week, we can pretty much just expect that there's not going to be as much passing and that whoever starts out front is going to be staying there for a while there too. So you're going to want to have the roster ship aimed towards those drivers that start closer to the front, just because finishing position is going to really especially matter. With just less drivers in the field, there's not as much place differential to go around there too, Rich.
No, there's not. So, I mean, the most you could gain is 19, right? I mean, that's literally the most you could gain. Someone's going to lead 120 laps, So I'm more worried about making sure I capture the dominators. I'd rather take a shot at 3 different guys I think could dominate and hope one hits and fill in with fluff. You know what I mean? The field's so small, 50% is to top 10, So, I mean, there's not a lot of points to be chasing really. Other bets to. Oh, did I skip something here? Nope. We were going to talk about potentially other bets to look at. Yes. Am I reading that right, Sean?
Just overall, I do want to point out about the All-Star Open with some of the odds of some of the drivers there. We mentioned Josh Berry. He's plus 800 in order to win the All-Star Open at DraftKings Sportsbook.
I like that bet. I think I had that listed in my article as well. Ty Gibbs is only 235, I think, or 225. There's a reason for it. Yeah, there's a reason for it. Honestly, I'd rather wait and bet him for the All-Star to win than I would be to take the 225 on the Open win.
But some of these other drivers, though, I do have my eye on them, like Todd Gilliland plus 3,000, Carson Hocevar plus 3,000, John Hunter Nemechek plus 4,000. And even if you really want to get super deep, we talked about him being a surprise this year. Justin Haley plus 8,000 there.
That would be fun. That's a deep one. So, nope, I don't disagree with there. We don't have any truck lines. None yet at all. I hope that changes. I don't know why we have none, but it is what it is. Here it is on Thursday. They practice qualified tomorrow, and we have none. I'm salty about
Recording this on Thursday as of right now.
Yeah, so sorry. We are recording Thursday, and as of right now on Thursday, there are none, and we practice tomorrow. I will be looking in Discord and trying to update as I can, but heads up, there are none. I can't seem to stress that enough because I'm upset about it. Well, let's talk about some of our bets to win on Sunday evening. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's get into our core four betting winners here, Rich. I'll let you go first with the betting core four this time. How about that?
That sounds good. And I tell you, we got a pile of overlap here, kids. Kyle Larson plus 850, Danny Hamlin plus 550, Tyler Reddick plus 1,200. Sean and I are all over these guys.
Yep.
Sean can break down where he's at with it. I've kind of already highlighted our thoughts on Larson and Hamlin, quite frankly, and Elliott and Reddick. I do like Elliott at this point in the week at 1,000 plus 1,000, 10-1. That's probably going to get shorter after the heat races, just a gut feeling. So if you want to bet a longer line on Elliott, this is the time. And the same is true for Reddick, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then I don't have them listed here, but I really dig Sean's other calls. Here's other drivers for his core four picks.
Yeah, and the last of my slot, because Rich and I overlapped on 3 of the 4 for our betting core fours this week. It's kind of a 2-for-1 deal because they're both at the same amount of odds and they're for the same team. But the RFK drivers at plus 1,400, Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski. I do kind of lean Buescher a little bit more, but I think you can't ignore Brad K as well, especially coming off of that win there at Darlington. We know that the RFK cars, they've shown some speed at the short tracks before, so this is something that we do have to keep in mind overall. And out of the 3 other bets that I like, I have to say this, it's not every day that you can get Kyle Larson at anything above like plus 500. So to see him at plus 850, definitely worth taking a shot right there. I mean, come on.
So I'm with you. I love the RFK calls. I really do. And I tell you what, shocker, Sean and I overlap a lot on our DFS picks. Who would have thunk it? Sean, I'll let you go through these because I'm still locked out on FanDuel. I've got to contact him. Apparently, I got to get on the phone now to do it. So it's turned into a disaster. So go ahead and rattle these off. There is a lot of overlap here.
Fantasy Guru community, if you want to make any memes of Rich trying to contact FanDuel just to get back on his account because this is such a recurring thing every week, by all means, please do post that in the chat, and I'd love to see them. Getting into the DFS core fours for me. I have Denny Hamlin, 10,500 on DraftKings, 13K on FanDuel. Tyler Reddick, I mentioned it before, he's undervalued and underpriced at 7,700 on DraftKings. 9,500 on FanDuel is still pretty nice as well. Ross Chastain, 7,200 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. And then his teammate Daniel Suarez at 6,700 on DraftKings and 6,500 on FanDuel. Give me the Trackhouse drivers in order to scoop up some nice points this weekend in the All-Star race, and give me some Toyotas.
Fair enough. I'm going high end here. if I can save enough somewhere else and maybe make a tweak, I might. But man, give me Larson at 10-3 on DraftKings. Give me Hamlin at 10-5 on DraftKings. Give me Brad Keselowski at 8,200 and Tyler Reddick at 7,700. I feel like with that 4, and I could pivot from Keselowski to say a Chastain and save $1,000, and maybe go cheap if say a Josh Berry, a Noah Gragson, somebody like that gets into Hocevar would be great at his price point. Somebody like that gets in, and then I could maybe go a little higher up yet and maybe chase an Elliott. I would love to get Larson, Hamlin, Reddick in on a lineup. Period, point blank. Those are the guys I'd really like to get in. Those are the guys I'm just kind of feeling are going to be the potential dominators. I'd love to find a way to get Elliott in there. I don't know if that's going to be possible. Like I said, you'd have to get really creative to do so. But Buescher and both Keselowski at those price points are good to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just really think that if you're going to be top loading with a lot of drivers, you're going to have to end up maybe considering a Suarez, McDowell, or an Allmendinger. And I like them in that exact order, just as stated right there.
That's fair.
You could go with Stenhouse as well, because he's pretty much the only driver that's under 6K that's locked into the All-Star race. But
and he's a short track driver. So it would not shock me to see Stenhouse be top 15, for example. Again, top 15 is only passing 5 cars if you started dead last. So, I just really want to make sure I capture those dominators. And in my opinion, Larson and Hamlin are my favorites with Reddick mixed in to do so. So I'm trying to really find a way to get those 3 into a lineup somehow.
But here's the thing, though. We know this as a fact and something to keep in mind for lineup construction. Whoever the 2 All-Star Open winners are and whoever the fan vote winner is, they're going to be starting 18th, 19th, and 20th exactly.
Yep.
The lowest that any of these drivers are locked into the All-Star race can start is 17th. Something to keep in mind, especially since we just mentioned Stenhouse. You just mentioned if he finishes top 15. Well, if he starts from the 17th position,
he only gets
that's not going to get you a lot of place differential.
It's only get you 2 points. And the difference of getting 5 or 10 instead of 2 is going to be big, right? And that's why I said you really are going to have to watch the Open. And I will caution folks, just because you see them do well in the Open and even dominate the Open, do not let that skew your thinking into thinking, oh, they are a perfect lock for the All-Star race. Because I'm going to let you know, regardless of what track we have been at, the fact that the All-Star guys aren't in the Open is noticeable when the Open guys start racing with the All-Star guys. I'm trying to, I don't want to beat around the bush here, but there's a reason the Open is the Open and the All-Star race is guys locked in, okay? The Open is filled with, I don't want to say lower level competition because that's not fair. We've seen guys like Mark Truex have to come out of it because he had a down season or something like that. But no, anymore, you wouldn't have to do that because he's a past champion. But we've seen other drivers in top equipment that have done that. Bottom line is they're not racing all the top equipment. They're the best of that half of the equipment that's out on the track, not all of the equipment or the top half.
Very true. I mean, Bubba Wallace is in the All-Star Open, and he's a driver that we usually see in top-notch equipment. Same case with Alex Bowman in a Hendrick car in the Open, the only one of the Hendrick cars in the Open right there.
It wouldn't shock me if those 2 cars, and Ty Gibbs, right, because they're one of the top Gibbs equipment cars, it wouldn't shock me if those 3 cars basically left the field.
Alongside Josh Berry and maybe Noah Gragson as well.
Right. So, well, hey, if you like the content, please, I believe on YouTube you can hit these likes and subscribes and stuff. Do that. That would be great. But really, please check out fantasyguru.com. Again, for $39.99, you get 12 months of all the stuff Sean and I do and then some. Everything is listed there for you. It's 12 months. It's ongoing. So it's from today till 2025 this year. We also have the 50 special coupon available for the all-in MVP that gets you the insane pricing of $399.99, which gets you literally everything on the site. All the data, all the betting, all the contests, all the gaming, everything. It also gets you a special little badge on Discord and a cool color for your name, just saying. Discord's where it's at. Please check us out on Discord. I hate to be rushing and going here, but I do got to hunt down this bone thingy and find out what's going on. At least I stopped bleeding, Sean. So there is that. We will have you covered with cheat sheets this week. Next week, we'll be back to more of our full-on content. The All-Star race look, Sean and I like to bet on it, but we'll tell you, folks, you might want to scale back the DFS just a little bit this week. It's going to be tough to differentiate. So on behalf of everybody at Fantasy Guru and Sean Engel, please give Sean a follow at Sean E247 on the Xbox machine. You can follow me at Fantasy Bosco. We love providing the content. Hit us up in Discord. On behalf of all of us at Fantasy Guru and the Elite Plus Network, thank you for tuning in. This is the Race Guru Thunder Hour. We're out.